Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we got gameplay update 7.31D. Let's get into it, let's talk about it, let's see what we got here. I'm definitely very excited. We've been playing on the same patch for a while now, so I think it's about time that we get a new patch, get some new meta heroes. Maybe Dazzle even got buffed, maybe Warlock is a viable hero. Probably not, they usually never are. But nonetheless, let's get into it, talk about the patch. And I'm very excited. And now I want to tell you guys a little bit about DotaPlus from Overwolf. This is a free stats app you guys can download right now that's going to show you your stats for the last 3 months. So if you want to know your games played, your MMR, your win rate, your XPM, your GPM, all of these things you need to track to know how well you're doing and what you need to change to gain MMR, you can get for absolutely free. On top of that, the biggest reason why you need to download DotaPlus, at least for me, is the ban suggestions. Basically, it tells you what the enemy team is good at. It tells you their best heroes, what they've been winning with. You just ban it. You might be wondering why your good heroes, why your best heroes keep getting banned. It's because of DotaPlus. The enemy team is using it and banning out your best heroes. So go download DotaPlus right now, and I'll see you guys there. All right, so first of all, Marcy got added to Captain's Mode. I wonder if they changed her or nerfed her. I would imagine yes. I think the hero was, I wouldn't say broken or OP. Maybe they just left her alone, actually. Roshan will now attack ward units if there are no other units within melee range. Now, so does that mean he's gonna de-ward you? I guess that means he'll de-ward you if you're trying to Rosh. Roshan attacks will immediately destroy any ward type. Oh god. Okay, so I don't know exactly what ward type units are. I don't know if that includes Wraith Pack, for instance, because that would be a huge deal, right? And then finally, the Satyr Mindstealer, mana aura reduced from 2.5 to 2. That's frankly not good enough. I don't know what else to say. Like, if you guys don't know why they did this nerf, Doom is currently pretty popular in high MMR as a support. You go, you eat the mana burn creep, then you get a mana burn creep, and that mana burn creep also gives you 2 mana regen. So you can mana burn off cooldown, griefing the enemy's mana pool, and you have infinite mana, and it's an aura, so it also gives it to your off laner or safe laner, right? Which is pretty OP. Next up we have Bracer. The HP regen was reduced by 0.25, which is actually quite notable. If you were gonna buy 2 or 3 of them, you're losing a significant amount of HP regen. Definitely could be the difference between dying or not, so bit of a nerf. Wouldn't say it makes the item unviable. Null Talisman no longer grants mana cost reduction. Oh, that is rough. Okay, oof. So Storm now grants 3% max mana. So Storm, pretty rough. I honestly think this is a big nerf to the item because mana cost reduction is way better than max mana. Max mana is quite an awful stat. That's why you'll never see like a casual point booster, because the thing about that is it doesn't help you with your mana regen, right? If you pop a Clarity, the Clarity benefits from mana cost reduction. Your other mana regen items benefit from mana cost reduction. They don't benefit from max mana at all. The only thing that max mana is good with is like going back to base, which most heroes don't want to do. So this is pretty big nerf. They did increase the mana regen though, which is nice. I don't know if we'll see too much of this item. I don't know what people will do because like mid, it's kind of the item you have to buy on a lot of these int mid laners. We'll see what the idea is for a lot of players. Duration is halved when cast on an ally for salve, which I'm assuming just means it's much worse when given to teammates, which I think kind of means you're not going to buy it on supports. Half? Do you think you'll still give? I don't think so. Pretty sure you're just not going to buy it on supports. Cost decreased from 110 to 100, which, okay, so it's just better as like a standalone item, but only by a slight amount. BKB cooldown increased from 75 to 90. Oh my god, what a change. What a nerf to BKB. I mean, a big thing about the late game is forcing BKBs and then punishing when it's on cooldown. It really is a big deal, especially the higher you go, the more this is a thing. And this is a huge nerf. 15 seconds is absolutely the difference between having it or not. So big nerf. Slight buff to Butterfly. Bit of a buff to Crimson Guard. Much bigger of a block for ranged heroes. I don't think you'll buy it though. Don't think that makes the item viable. Lincoln Sphere with 2 extra seconds of cooldown. That's actually pretty huge nerf to Lincoln Sphere. The active lifesteal was reduced from 200% to 175 on Satanic. I think you still buy it in good Satanic games though. Eternal Shroud, magic resistance increased from 20% to 25, a pretty big buff, 5% reduction. And Shroud cooldown reduced from 60 to 45. Wow, that's really huge actually. So a huge nerf to Eternal Shroud. A big buff to your heroes like Lesh that might pick up this item. Definitely huge. I think that's, yeah, a really massive buff to this item. The only problem is not a lot of heroes buy it. and I don't think that's really going to change necessarily, but this is huge for the heroes that do buy. Bloodstone, spell lifesteal increased by 5%, and the blood pack cooldown reduced by 10. I know Leshrac buys this as well, so I don't know, Leshrac buffs? I don't know what other heroes buy these items that are good. You might be like Bristleback. It's like, I don't like that build even on Bristleback that much. I think it's meh. I don't think Bloodstone is really good on any hero, so I don't know. Revenant's Brooch, okay. Cooldown reduced from 45 to 25. That's good. The item is really trash. This is a huge buff to that. Cooldown now starts after all attacks run out. Oh, is that not the case in the past? Okay, so it's not that big of a buff then, kind of. It's still probably a buff, but not that big of a buff. I would say it's a pretty big buff. Mana cost increased from 250 to 300. No longer consumes an attack when hitting a magic immune target. That's nice. So, okay. So I didn't know that was even the case. That's good. You can now cast Revenant's Brooch while active to remove all remaining attacks and start the cooldown. Wraith Pact, model size increased by 50%. That's good, because you literally could not see it. A big problem with this item was it would be placed on the ground, and then no one knows where it is. Now you'll see it, which is definitely a cool change. I like that Valve even identified that. That's pretty cool. Attacks to destroy reduced from 5 to 4. Gold bounty increased from 20 to 100. It's actually worth killing it now. When cast, it will automatically follow the caster. That's a nice quality of life. So would I say you could still buy this item? I would say yes. I would say 30% damage reduction when used is still pretty OP. However, it does give a bit of a bounty now, a pretty significant one. It's only 4 hits, which is nice, and you're actually gonna see it. So I think it's still gonna be a strong item. I'll keep it real. I think a lot of people are still gonna buy it, especially in the late game when there's just so much going on. It's hard to pay attention to the Wraith Pact. There's too much going on. You know, your last priority is going to be to click a Wraith Pact, so I think that's going to come into play. All right, now let's get into the hero updates. So first off, we have Alchemist. Okay, that's not really a change. The chemical restoration was increased by from 25 to 30, but the cooldown was increased by 5, so it's the same uptime, but it lasts slightly longer. I would say that that's generally a buff, because in team fights, you want to make sure it stays up, right? Like, so when you click it, you usually click it at the beginning of a team fight. So I think you'd rather have it up for longer, and then the cooldown to be a bit longer as well. So slight alch buffs. I actually think this hero is pretty decent. Bristleback, cast range increased from 600 to 650. That's pretty nice. And release threshold reduced from 210 to 200. That's not bad. That's pretty freaking solid. The Centaur Warrunner stun duration increased from 1.6 to 2 flat. Wow, a pretty huge buff to Hoof Stomp at level 1. I think it used to be 2 flat when this hero was meta, but the hero was way different when this was meta. Retaliate was like a broken ability. Either way, the stun duration was increased quite significantly here at level 1, so that's really nice for Centaur and lane. I don't think the hero is going to be meta, but it is a nice change and gives you a lot of kill potential. Okay, CK, damage reduced from 90-180 to 60-120, so big nerf if you high roll on the bolt. 60 less damage at level 1 is a huge nerf. Then 110-220 to 90-180. So it seemingly scales back. Okay, so it's much worse at level 1 when this hero was broken in lane. And then the lifesteal was reduced. Do I think this makes the hero unviable? I want to say the hero is still good. I don't know. I don't think this is a big enough nerf to really take this hero out of the meta. I think you definitely can still pick CK. It's a good change. I would say I like their idea, but I would have liked to see maybe a slightly bigger nerf to this hero. Clockwork deals 2 times damage to creeps. Okay, that's actually really cool. This means that I wouldn't say necessarily Clock Core is viable, even though it's kind of a cool idea, because you can actually kill creeps and you can jungle, which is, it's something, but I don't think the hero is like particularly a hero you want to like farm on or whatever. But yeah, so it's good for support Clock, because you can like jungle and push in waves now, which is a big issue with the hero. When you pick Clock as a support, its wave clear was very underwhelming. This definitely helps that a lot. So I like it. That's a really cool change from Valve. Crystal Maiden, base strength reduced by 1. Cast range on Frostbite increased by 50, which is actually pretty huge. And slow duration was increased. So I would say probably a buff. I think you're okay with losing 1 strength for 50 cast range, which is a lot actually. It's actually a ton. It really makes the difference in a lot of situations. And then the slow duration being an extra 0.5. So I would say a buff to a hero that I already thought was good. Obviously you lost some base strength, just buy a branch or 2 and you'll be all right, I think. And I think this hero is really strong right now. I'm a big fan of CM. Darkseer base agility increased by 1. Okay, that's, how did they even come up with that? What does that change? Mana cost reduced on Surge. Okay, 15 less at level 1 is pretty nice. And then damage increased on Vacuum from 40 to 100. at level 1. I thought it was already 100 at level 1. Did they nerf it? Oh, they must have nerfed it. So vacuum just does 100. Okay, that's pretty crazy. It is a 60-second cooldown, which is what makes this like not broken, but pretty wild. I mean, these are big buffs to the Darkseer. Like your vacuum, your level 2 spike is like way better now. You just have 60 extra damage, which is like pretty huge on the 2 heroes potentially. So pretty nice. Shadow Realm cooldown reduced by 6 seconds at level 1, so it makes Dark Willow a much better laner. Strength growth reduced from 3.6 to 3.4. The critical damage, that's obviously a nerf. It's kind of weird. Critical damage increased by pretty low amounts, to be honest. And Solar Guardian, I mean, it's 10 seconds less at max, but it's the same at level 1. And I would say this is when it's most important. Like, I would say Solar Guardian in the early game is like really OP as an ability, but it kind of falls off. So I don't really feel like, I mean, it's good for split pushing. This is like good for core Dawnbreaker, but it's like barely a buff. I don't know. I feel like they could have just done the Luminosity and Solar Guardian changes and left her strength growth alone. I don't really know why they would nerf her. I don't feel like she deserved that. But all right, I mean, like in that regard. All right, Dazzle, what do we got? What the? That's it? This is all we're changing? I mean, it's a pretty long hex at 2 seconds, but it's still like really slow, right? It's a projectile, which is kind of trash, and it's still not that long. And then damage heal per stack increased from... I don't think I don't know. Is this hero still trash? I think it's still trash. Static storm duration increased by a full second. Wow, that's a big buff. An extra whole second on Disruptor ulti. That is massive. That's a lot more damage and a lot more control. That's gonna make the difference in a lot of situations between getting a kill or not. So that is a huge buff to Disruptor. Okay, big Disruptor buff. Base Agi reduced by 3. Oh, shard duration reduced from 10 to 8. Shard AoE reduced by 100. Holy, is that the death of Dragonite? That is a big freaking nerf. That is a big 100 AoE is massive. Oh, Drow Ranger level 25 talent slightly buffed. Are you kidding me, Valve? That's it. Stun duration increased from, oh, Aftershock is, okay, it's much better at level 1, and it's quite a bit better at level 2, and it scales to the same at 4, but that's a really nice buff to Earthshaker. Makes Earthshaker's laning stage a lot better, which is a good change. I like this. I think it's a step in the right direction. Would have liked to see maybe a slight buff on something else, perhaps. Elder Titan bonus speed per creep increased from 1% to 1.5%. That's actually huge. That's actually so huge. What the hell? That is a massive buff. I'm like thinking about it. You're gonna hit like 1 million creeps with this in the early game. You can hit an entire creep wave, which is gonna give you 2% movement speed, and then a creep camp, which is almost another 2% movement speed. So you're getting 3.5% extra movement speed, which is gonna be like, I don't know, 40 movement speed? No, that's way too high. Maybe 20 movement speed? Something like that? I'm not gonna do the exact math, but like, that's a lot. That's a big buff to Elder Titan in the laning stage. That's really huge. And Earth Splitter, just a flat 100 now. Much better early on, so it's a better value point at level 1. Big buffs to Elder Titan. I don't know, man. That's huge. I already thought this hero was like not that bad. I kind of feel like people are gonna start picking Elder Titan as a support again. Maybe that's a hot take, but I honestly think the hero is like quite solid, to be perfectly honest. Ember Spirit, base strength increased from 21 to 22. Cast range reduced from 700 to 650. That's a big nerf on the sleight of fist cast range. Because like usually you want to poke people from as far away as possible and chain them from as far away as possible. But this is a big nerf to that. So I would say this hero's actually worse. Even with this base strength, it's definitely worse. Which is kind of unfortunate because I didn't think Ember was even good. Or like particularly good. Demonic Conversion. Cooldown increased by another 10. So the heroes, this is good. I hate Enigma, man, but this is good. Another 10 seconds on Demonic Conversion. I think this is a reasonable nerf. I think it's reasonable. And Wraith Pack got nerfed, which was this hero's main item. So pretty big nerfs to Enigma. I think that's good. This hero was pretty OP in my opinion. Agonum Scepter radius increased. I hate this Ags. I think it's like super meh. Second attack delay increased from, all right, whatever. Inkswell radius reduced by 25. And then the cooldown was increased by 3 seconds at max. What a nerf. Damn, that hurts. Because usually you could get 2 of these quick off in a team fight. Like very often. Because Blink Daggers are a 15-second cooldown. So what would happen is your Blink Initiator would blink Inkswell and then disengage. And then you do it again. But now there's just this annoying ass 3-second delay. Which is huge nerf to Grim. I didn't think this hero was that strong. But I don't know. This is a really big nerf. And a nerf to the radius. And radius is a big deal, right? Because AoE and radius, like even a 25 or a 50 number decrease is a big deal. Huskar, damage rescaled from 170, 240, 310 to 120. So it's worse at max slightly, but it's better at level 1, which is probably a buff because it's much easier to secure range creeps with it. And it's, you know, slightly better in the lane. IO overcharge attack speed has been halved at level 1. Shh. Damn. That is, what? Oh my, that is brutal. All right. I don't want to say rip IO, but that is brutal. I mean, the reality, I was going to say you could still pick it with like magical damage heroes, but the thing is like, even those heroes use the attack speed in the early game to like farm, you know, and IO still uses it to trade. So, oh, that is brutal. Big nerf to IO. Keeper of the Light, damage reduced from 200 to 185, slightly less than other numbers. I don't know. I bet these numbers kind of mess up how you have to last hit, but I don't really know exactly how that would work. I can't imagine this makes this hero like not good. I feel like it's probably still good, but it definitely greased the numbers a bit. I'm not exactly sure how, but it probably makes you have to hit the range creep like 3 times instead of twice or whatever it is. So I wouldn't say if you like Coddle, I would say you could still play it, but it's definitely a decent sized nerf for sure. Cooldown decreased from 2.3 to 1.9 and 0.1 less at max. I mean, it's decent. It's decent at level 1. It's like a decent buff at level 1, but nothing insane. And overwhelming, okay, whatever. I don't like Legion. I don't think she's very good. Number of targets increased on the bounce from 4 to 5. That's a big buff actually to Lesh, but the damage was nerfed at level 1, so it's only 70 now. So what's interesting about this is the reason why 4 to 5 is a big deal is there's 4 creeps in a creep wave. So if you nuke the wave, you wouldn't always hit the hero. But now if you nuke the wave, you're still gonna hit the hero, which is good. But I mean, to be fair, I think people will still just take this at level 2 and not use it as much. I think it's like, I think it's a nerf. It's a nerf because I don't think you really needed to like spam level 1 Lightning Storm necessarily. But I don't think it makes the hero much worse by any means. I think the hero's fine. It's also technically 10 damage stronger at max, but you wouldn't really max this ability, so it's like a slight nerf, I'd say. Lich, mana cost barely changed. I mean, to be fair, maxing Q is slightly better now. I'm a fan of that build on Lich. Lifestealer, 0.2% enemy max health is damage, which is a big deal because it's percentage-based damage, so that definitely matters. It's a decent-sized buff. I don't think it makes Lifestealer good, but it's there. Lina, stack duration increased from 15 to 18, a really big buff on the Fury Soul, making the hero really be able to just keep her stacks up much more easily. In between farming and team fights where you might not always interact with a creeper or hero, you would run out of stacks, and it was a really big nerf, but this actually helps the hero a lot. Earth Spike projectile speed increased by 200. It's pretty nice. It will make sure people can't get away from your stun when you're ground stunning, because sometimes you'll have to ground stun to catch people who are out of the immediate cast range, but Earth Spike goes further than the cast range allows. It's kind of weird, but it does work like that, and so this is really nice for making sure you're going to connect on that stun. Pretty big buff in that regard. And cooldown, 6 seconds less at level 1. Wow, a big buff to Hex at level 1, especially in the laning stage. I honestly felt like Lion was like a decent hero. I don't think this hero is really that bad. It did get nerfed like pretty hard on, I think it was Earth Spike cooldown was the big one that got nerfed. That made the hero like less popular. I don't think Lion's that bad. I'm honestly like sort of a fan of the hero, to be honest. I don't think it's insanely good, but you know, it gives your team a blink Hex. It has its place. It's still like a pretty good laner. And these are big buffs, especially this 6 seconds less at level 1 is really nice. Loosen Beam, just straight up better overall. Pretty big buff to the hero. 20 damage on every single Loosen Beam in Eclipse is gonna make you do like 100 something more damage, which is definitely gonna be the difference between getting a kill or not. So pretty big buff to Luna. Lycan, Shapeshift, slightly buffed. I feel like the hero was actually not that bad, but okay, 20% more crit at max is really nice for the hero. Don't think it makes him like that much better, especially in pubs where people just suck at uni heroes. Wouldn't pick it. Marcy, cooldown increased from 110, 90, 70 to 180, 60, so big buff to Unleash. Throw distance reduced by 50, which is a big deal. It will make you go under tower less, just less BS. Fixed thrown enemies being able to cast spells for one frame before being stunned. Does that also include BKB? Because you could BKB when being disposed, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, okay, that's weird. Because like Puck could get out of dispose, I'm pretty sure. But I guess you can't do that now. So it's a pretty big, I would say these are like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a buff, but the throw distance is a pretty big nerf. So it's tough. I would say the hero's probably about the same in terms of like overall power. Base damage reduced by 3 on Mars, and spear stun reduced by 0.2. I already wasn't that big of a fan of Mars. Now it's just like kind of mega nerfed, so meh. The hero's meh. Mana Void increased from 80, 90, 100, 110 to 90, 100, 110, 120. So bit of a nerf to Nightstalker, nothing crazy. Omni Knight, bonus damage on Hammer Purity. Okay, who cares? Pangolier, cooldown increased by 2 at all levels at Shield Crash. Pretty big nerf. Roll-up duration reduced by 1.25, a huge nerf. So pretty big nerfs to Pango. Still think the hero's like solid though, to be honest, but definitely big nerfs, especially just to the shield crash. It's an ability you want to spam at all points in the game, so it's a pretty huge nerf, frankly. Okay, huge buff to Doppelganger at level 1. 6 seconds less of Doppelganger at level 1, making it a much better laning ability for dodging auto attacks, purging abilities against certain matchups. This is really OP. Against something like Veno, this is a massive buff. Overall, just a really nice buff for PL. Because sometimes in some lanes, if it's a very difficult lane, you need Doppel to go for CS or go for kills. So 6 seconds less at level 1 for an ability that you usually leave at level 1 till level 8 is really nice. And then also Juxtapose damage increased from 5% to 8%. I don't know what the other talent is. I think it's Phantom Rush cast range, which you're probably still going to take instead, but 8% damage on Juxtapose is actually really high, so it's something to consider. Base damage increased by 3 on Pudge. Wow, this hero hits hard. The damage block increased from 5 to 7, 10 to 14, 15 to 21, and 20 to 28. So in the right matchups against tick damage, Pudge blocks hella damage. I don't know. I don't think this hero is that bad. I think it's not good, but I don't think Pudge is that bad. I like Pudge as a core. This hero is actually pretty nasty in the lane. Its base damage is quite ridiculous. But either way, Nether Ward, damage per used mana increased from 1 to 0.75. Okay, so it's 0.25 worse at all levels. And the damage reduction is reduced from 10 to 8, 15 to 12, 20 to 16, and 25 to 20%. Does this make this hero unviable, is the question. It's still 20% damage reduction. I don't know, man. I don't think this makes Pugna that bad. I mean, it's a nerf. It's a good nerf. I think you can still pick Pugna. I don't think it's that big of a nerf. I mean, it is a big nerf. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's not big. Like, for where this hero is currently in terms of power, I don't think it's a big enough nerf. Ricky, Tricks of the Trade, cooldown reduced at level 1. It's good for the lane. Helps, kind of like the Doppelganger, but not as big of a buff. Shadow Poison, hit damage increased. So the hit damage, I believe, is just the damage when it literally hits them, which is not a big deal. I don't think that's the stack damage. If this is the stack damage, I don't think it is. But if this is the stack damage, that's pretty OP at max. But I believe this is literally just the damage it does when it hits them, which is not that big of a deal. So wouldn't say it's a big buff in that regard. Max sphere duration increased by potentially 0.3. Who cares? The hero sucks. Strength growth reduced on Silencer, not by a lot. Mana cost barely decreased on Arcane Current. Okay, that is pointless changes. Base damage increased on Slark by what? What is this? They buffed the hero. Valve, I don't know, man. Why don't you make some real changes? I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys right now. I'm gonna keep it real. I feel like a lot of these changes just don't really matter. There's some like big ones like IO, like Enigma. There's some cool changes. There's a lot of good changes, and I don't want to sound like some spoiled brat, like blah, 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 blah. I can't believe they don't patch the game like better. But I mean, to some extent, I guess I do feel that way. You know, it's like I don't know. A lot of these changes, like this Legion change, I don't feel like it really changes the hero. I feel like this Huskar change barely changes the hero. I don't feel like Lesh is really too much different. I don't feel like Lich is different. I feel like Lifestealer is almost the same. I feel like, I mean, the Lina change was probably good. The Lion change is good. I mean, it's good changes somewhat. But some of these changes are just so weird to me. I would like to just see some heroes that are bad be good. I don't know what else to say. Like, Slark is just still shit, at least in my bracket. You can still pick him in a good Slark game. Like, Shadow Fiend, I don't feel like this hero is almost any better, frankly. If this is like the only buff to Shadow Demon, like, if that's not the stack damage, it's like barely changing the hero. This isn't really gonna make Ricky much better, or almost any better. I think the problem is they have to be careful about buffing heroes that are good in pubs, but like bad in pro games. You know, it's a tough job for Valve, I will admit. They have to be really careful. But I don't know, I would like to see them just take some chances. Just nerf the good heroes, like, relatively hard. And maybe this is a hot take, and maybe, like, there's a reason why they don't do this, and I'm not sure. But I don't know, that's just, like, my take. Like what is this change? It's like, great, you do 50 more damage, like, 30 minutes into the game with Assassinate. Like, people weren't even skilling Assassinate. They, like, take stats over Assassinate right now, the good players. It's like, this is a decent change to Sven. 10 extra attack speed's really good in the lane. That's actually a huge buff. Pretty big buff to Sven. Like, I like that. I mean, I respect it, but they could have also been, like, stun duration increased by 0.2. You know, and then it's like, oh, okay, maybe Sven's, like, a good hero. Like, because Sven's kind of bad, right? At least my opinion of Sven is that he's bad. Could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, the hero's not so good. So like, is 10 attack speed enough to make this hero viable? Maybe. I mean, it is 10 attack speed, it's a lot in the lane, but he could have gotten another slight buff, and then I think he would have been in like solid. Techie's proximity gold bounty reduced by 10. Okay, that's pretty nice. Magic resistance reduction increased by 5% at all levels, and then detonation slow duration increased by 0.5. So pretty big buff to Techies, you know. 5% spell amp really is a big deal considering it amps all of the spells you're casting. So really nice buff for Techies overall. So this hero is quite a bit better. I think it's definitely somewhat viable. Bonus attack damage. Oh, my friend told me about this before I went into the patch. He's like, they just doubled TV's damage. Now this is a buff that can make this hero OP. 15 extra damage on meta is stupid. That is a stupid amount of damage. I already thought TB was decent as a hero. Not necessarily in pubs because people can't really play TB well. This is like a hard hero, but you know, damn, like that's a real change. You know, this is something that like, you know, I'm like, okay, I want to go try TB. I want to go see how that feels. It's also 10 better at level 2, which is like a big buff as well, you know? So, whew, okay. Base strength increased by 1 for Timber, not a big deal. Chain distance, okay, this hero's still OP. I don't want to say it's a buff, it's definitely not a buff, but it's still like really strong. Defense matrix, snowball, speed, increased slightly, and slow, okay. Ursa, move speed slow, 6% better at level 1, that's a pretty big deal, I will admit. 6% slow in the laning stage could be an extra auto attack, which could be the difference in like killing them eventually. Base damage increase, no way, dude, I don't know, man. Like, is this really, I mean, base damage increases are always a big deal, but like 2? That's it? Is this really gonna bring Venge back? I don't think so. Max damage per charge, 5 less, which means at level 1, it's gonna do 15 less damage. I would imagine Visage is still a good hero, considering they did not nerf drums and slightly nerfed Wraith Pack. I will admit, you gotta be careful about using Wraith Pack the early game, because feeding 100 gold away is pretty big deal. So I will say for a hero like Visage, Wraith Pack getting nerfed quite significantly is like the bigger nerf to the hero, because that's kind of why Visage was good. He could like really use that item well. But all right, movement speed increased by 10 for Warlock, it's a big deal. Max slow increased by actually quite a bit at level 1, but nah. Chaotic offering cast range decreased. Why would you nerf him, man? Why do you nerf? This is not, it's like great, give him 10 movement speed, great. Why would you nerf? Like, this is barely a buff. I mean, it's definitely nice at level 1. I will admit, this is pretty big. 15% is huge, actually. So I'll give you that. And 10 movement speed is a ton. I'll give you that. You didn't need to do this. Just let Warlock be good. Just let him be good. I don't know. I feel like it's fine if this hero's good for a bit. It would be, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm cool with it. Weaver, attack damage slightly buffed. Okay, it's pretty nice at level 1. Getting to our last 3 changes here. We got the shard push speed reduced from 250 to 240. Okay, that seems pretty non-consequential if you ask me. That seems like it's 10. Surely it doesn't really matter. Cooldown reduced from 70 to 60. All right, I think this hero's solid. I will admit, I'm a fan of Witch Doctor. I think more people should think about this hero. It can be really active early game. It gives you a lot of kill potential with the +1 stun. I'm a fan of the Doctor, all right? It has some flaws, but it's a good laner. Yeah, it's like falls off late game really hard, but it's a really good early game tempo hero, which I think for some drafts is kind of nice, and it's a good laner. And then finally, a bit of a buff to Zeus. I thought the hero was already pretty good, and this is a huge buff, right? The duration of the slow is 0.6 seconds longer, which is actually a ton, right? So, all right, I like Zeus. I think if you guys are interested in a hero to try out, I would say Zeus. Just make sure you buy your shard like ASAP. I think the hero without shard is not good. But all right, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to say overall, my opinion of the patch, I'd give it like a 4 out of 10. I'm going to keep it 100. I wouldn't give it much more than that. Like, I'm happy to have a patch, but there's a lot more changes. Clearly, they have a lot like more guild changes, which I didn't cover in this video. I'll cover them in a separate video you guys can check out, but I wanted to do like a hero and item focused patch. So I understand they did all this other stuff, which is definitely cool, and I'm excited to talk about it. But to be honest, I often feel like the bigger changes for Dota are the item and the hero changes. I often feel that they are the bigger deal, that they are what Valve should focus on. If you guys agree with me, you can tell me in the comments. If you disagree and you feel like the other changes are enough and I should stop complaining, then you could also tell me. But nonetheless, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.